Hey guys, Blocktrain here with another video, coin review, and today I wanted to talk about VeChain. Now, VeChain's been getting a lot of hype in these past 6 months just because they have really high-level partnerships all around. And if you're like me, I get warning bells in my head when I hear something that's so hyped up because of their partnerships. Because for the most part, when you look at partnerships in a lot of these blockchain projects, they're not as important as they seem. A big example was Neo with Microsoft, and you thought there'd be a partnership, but it was just a dev competition. It's not really a true partnership. So that's why I was skeptical of VeChain at first without doing any research. But now that I've done my research and I've really looked into what VeChain is, what it hopes to do, from a top-down perspective, everything seems to fit together. I understand what VeChain is trying to do, and because of that, when I see the companies they work with, I'm more assured that the companies that they're working for, it makes sense why those companies would be working with VeChain, specifically DNVGL. And I'll get into it later, why that partnership is so key for VeChain. And just beyond that, just VeChain as a whole, it looks very solid. There are some things I'm still iffy on, but at the same time, blockchain is still a very new space. They're still testing out solutions that work in terms of, consensus and making a blockchain ecosystem, and at the same time, VeChain is also very new, and so they don't have all the functionality out yet. And I think one of the biggest things to see with VeChain, one of the biggest, what ifs of its success is that, it has these great partnerships, but can it succeed? Will it deliver? And, there's no reason to believe it won't deliver, but at the same time, it hasn't yet. It doesn't have the tech out there. It just has a bunch of very nice partnerships and great ideas. So let's get right into it, and I want to talk about the use cases of VeChain. Now, VeChain in a nutshell is a blockchain supply chain solution company, or blockchain. So that's just a really convoluted way of saying they like to track, or they like to keep data records. It's one of the most basic use cases of the blockchain, but if you do it well, it's one of the most important. So I'm just going to do a quick rundown of this list. So they do cold chain logistics. So basically think of an oyster, which is the example they give in this video. This video right here. An oyster. So somebody's selling oysters. This company is selling oysters. They take that oyster from the ocean. They put it into the first warehouse where they collect the oysters. Every oyster gets an RFID tag. Now, an RFID tag exists right now in Walmart or anything. It's just a tiny little chip that can be attached to almost anything, or in a bag with almost anything, and it just holds information. And what that information is depends on what product you're using. But what's new is connecting that RFID tag to the blockchain to make sure that the information in the RFID tag is immutable and cannot be changed. So the examples that they gave with oysters is you have an RFID tag with every oyster, and it records the temperature that the oyster is in. It records these specific metrics that show where the oyster is at in terms of the supply chain, but also what conditions the oysters are in. And so they have parameters for how high the temperature can be, and if it goes past that, then they can say, okay, the temperature went past it here, these oysters are bad. So it's really useful for these companies to see where their product goes wrong, because right now how it works is that you just have a batch of oysters, you go and you have people hand check them. And that's a lot of work, a lot of effort, and it's much more efficient to use these RFID chips. And on the other hand, you can also use that as a consumer, because if the company chooses to give their, let's say you buy an oyster, okay? You buy an oyster with an RFID chip. If the company allows you to scan that and see the info, you can see that along the supply chain, this oyster was in the perfect conditions to be a good oyster to eat along the way. And so it really eliminates the need for trust between the consumer and the business, while also giving businesses a lot of advantages in terms of efficiency, which is why, again, it's just a great use case in general. Automobile, it's not entirely supply chain management. It's more of a digital passport of a vehicle. So basically just think of your car. You have registration, that your car got repairs, and it just records all this information so that when you need it, when you're making a claim with an insurance company, you're trying to buy a new car, it records information like, hey, are you a good driver? Hey, was your insurance in check the entire time? Were you registered? Just information that otherwise you would need to prove extensively and, kind of time. It takes a lot of time. it would just be more efficient to use the RFID chip and just prove it through that. So it just saves a lot of time for good actors. Like I said, or not like I said, but blockchain is just very good for weeding out these bad actors. If you're a bad actor, you should hate the blockchain. For example, if you want to commit insurance fraud, these RFID chips will make it significantly harder. But if you're just an honest, if you're just an honest guy who just wants to get your insurance claim, filed fast, this is a great solution. Medical and healthcare, I don't want to get too much into this just because I don't know too much about medical and healthcare, but the example that they gave was that, hey, you have these really important medical devices. Think of like a heart, machine that goes inside your heart and monitors something. You want to make sure that the machine itself was in the right condition, so they do the same thing as they would with the meat. When you have certain metrics which say, okay, this product was made correctly. Nothing went wrong along the logistical supply chain. And the other example they gave, which was, in my opinion, really cool, but it could be kind of scary to some people. But imagine if you had a heart monitor kind of attached inside your body. What you could do is you could have that heart monitor be connected to the VeChain blockchain, which is incredibly secure. So you wouldn't have to worry about, malfunctions or hacking or something like that when it's a really important thing inside of your body. And you could send that information that monitors your health to your doctor in real time. So your doctor could literally be looking at your information as it's coming out. And if something, if your blood pressure spikes up way up and you don't even realize, your doctor will, and they can call you and say, hey, you need to come to the hospital now. So it's more preventative measures. Again, really cool use of the blockchain. I don't think this will be as prevalent in the near future as the other ones, just because the other ones are more simple. Luxury and fashion, think of Gucci bags. You can just have, authentic Gucci bags. There are a lot of counterfeits, which is a real problem. You can have authentic Gucci bags have a specific RFID tag that says, hey, this is an authentic Gucci bag. And just a quick side note is that what VeChain is also trying to implement is, increase branding with companies. So basically, you can see the history of your bag. Your bag, let's say your bag used to be owned by Paris Hilton. Now that's a really cool fact. And right now you have no way to prove that. But with that RFID tag, if you can tag your identity on there with something like a video that says, hey, I'm Paris Hilton, I own this bag, suddenly that bag has a lot more legitimacy or, a history. So it connects the company through branding to the consumer. It just gives you more options for connecting with the consumer. I think it's a cool idea. Liquor, that's somewhat of the same lines as cold meats, which is just, hey, this came from this vineyard, it's been in the right temperatures, everything along the process is good. So it's pretty simple. Agriculture, I don't want to get too into this just because I actually don't really understand this example. From what I do understand of it, it's that they're using some technology to track metrics like weather and soil conditions. And as a farmer, you can store that information and you can share it with other farmers if you want. You have total control of your own data. And the way VeChain puts it is that you can just aggregate data with other farmers as you choose based on, if you trust them. And it could lead to more efficient farming methods. Again, I don't know too much about that. Don't take my word on that. But again, it's a cool idea, I guess. Logistics are just, this is like, logistics basically make up almost every use case here. It's just like, the top thing that everything else would branch down from. And it's just, hey, when the product's going from point A to point B, we can track it. We can say, hey, it's here, hey, it's over there, hey, it's over here in real time. So just very useful because we actually can't do that right now. We don't have a good method. But the VeChain blockchain gives us a great method, or the blockchain just in general. So now we've talked about use cases. This is what they're trying to do. They're just trying to be a supply chain blockchain company, just helping people, number one, have immutable records of the blockchain and the supply chain to help companies be more efficient. Also help consumers know what they're getting. And that's basically it. It's a pretty simple idea that in practice would be very hard to implement. It's really like a worldwide thing that you would have to do. And before I get into partnerships and what exactly VeChain is doing to further that goal, I want to talk about their blockchain. Now, VeChain uses proof of authority. Now, proof of authority is different from proof of work and proof of stake. And basically, here's how it works. VeChain has 101 authority nodes. Now, these nodes will have a consensus, agree to a consensus that says, hey, all these transactions were right, and we all agree that this is, the next block that we're going to put. But the real question comes when you say, hey, who picks these 101 authority nodes? And this is where I'm a little iffy on VeChain, just because it's not a truly decentralized solution. It's actually a pretty centralized solution in the sense that one team, the VeChain team, controls all these nodes. They'll vet these nodes. They'll say that they have the permission to take away the authority of a node or give the authority of a node. So they're basically the centralized team who has all the power. At the same time, they're decentralized in the way that servers can be decentralized. For example, I assume something like Facebook, they have all their servers in one spot, so that's the one central attack point. But VeChain has 101 authority nodes that I assume would be in different places and run by different people. So central points of attacks, those aren't really a big worry in the sense that, if one goes down, you still have 100. It's probably more secure, server decentralization-wide than Neo, which has like 8 nodes, I think. 8 huge nodes. So all I'm saying is that in terms of true decentralization, VeChain just isn't there, and I don't think it will ever be there just because I don't think the VeChain team really wants to truly decentralize something. I'm not saying this, I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing, but I think it kind of takes away from what the blockchain and decentralization are truly meant to do, which is you don't really need to trust anyone. And what's happening here is that if you can trust VeChain to run this network in a way that a good actor would, in a way that, tries not to be a bad actor, this whole system will work fine. But at the same time, let's say an oyster goes bad and a company says to, VeChain, who runs all these authority nodes, hey, can you change this one product? It'll give us some really bad PR. It's possible that they could do that. I'm not saying they will. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to spread FUD about this project, but I'm just saying this could happen, and in a truly decentralized project, it couldn't. And so that's why I'm a little iffy. But at the same time, VeChain has given us no reason to think that they would act that way. They have really huge reputable companies behind them, and I think it would really be more trouble than it'd be worth to do something like I just said. But the fact remains that they can do it. You have to trust them not to do that. And I think that defeats the point. Well, not defeats the point, but takes away from the point of true blockchain decentralization. On a positive note, though, VeChain has a lot of partnerships lined up. So they need high scalability right off the bat. They can't really scale up with these open source projects like Bitcoin or Ethereum. And so by having a centralized solution with these 101 authority nodes, they can really, have more TX per second than, something like Ethereum or Bitcoin. They say they can do 10,000 transactions per second, which is, I'm sure that's enough for whatever they're trying to do. I think they said that on a niche initial launch, they're expecting to do like 50 TX per second. So, that's way more than enough. So the roadmap in itself is pretty bare bones. VeChain was started in 2015, which is a good sign just because there are a lot of blockchain projects that come out just last year, just riding the hype. And they had their ICO in August of last year, but it's good to know that they were thinking about this before then, that this wasn't just a product of the hype. And we can see that with the project itself. It's just good to see the roadmap, that the timeline is there. And so I was looking into the team, and I really only looked into Sunny Liu just because he's the CEO, and I think if the CEO is reputable, everyone underneath him should be pretty reputable. And Sunny Liu, by all accounts, as far as I've looked into it, is very reputable. He had a blockchain as a service company called BitSE, which was working on blockchain solutions. They're actually, I think I have an article right here where on July 2nd, 2016, CoinDesk reported that PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the big 4 accounting firms, was working with this company. So, and they're working with VeChain too, so it translated over. And it's good to know that a company like PricewaterhouseCoopers was already partnered with them and looking into them, way before this hype came up and all these new projects came up, and it really legitimizes the VeChain project, I think. So that's all I have to say about the team. I think it's a solid team. I don't think they're anything super special in terms of what they've done in the past, but at the same time, I think they're reputable and they seem to be doing really well. And what more can you ask for? So I wanted to talk about the featured supporters just a little bit, just because I really like Brier Capital. It's just a great investing firm, really legitimate. Has a lot of, has a big reputation in the corporate world, and again, something like this really legitimizes the VeChain project. It shows faith that this isn't some pump and dump, and although nobody who actually knows anything about VeChain would say it's a pump and dump, it's always a worry in this crypto space, and so things like this really legitimize the project. And I wanted to talk about DNVGL. Now, I looked up DNVGL because it seemed like VeChain and DNVGL were really, buddy buddies in this industry. DNVGL was helping them get all these partnerships. So I wondered, hey, what does DNVGL do? And it turns out they're an international accredited registrar. So if you don't know what this is, and I didn't when I first saw it, is basically they have like a certificate from the government, whichever government that their headquarters are in or wherever they're trying to work. And basically they have the authority to go to different companies and check that they're going through the right security requirements. So, they say they work in maritime, oil and gas, energy, business assurance. Basically, they're the guys to come in and audit and say, hey, you're not doing this right. These aren't up to standards. They're basically just making sure that the companies are doing what they should be in terms of standard regulations. Now, why this is so important and why I love the partnership between DNVGL and VeChain so much is that that's exactly what VeChain is trying to solve in terms of, how can we make sure that these companies are doing what they can? And with the VeChain blockchain, you can see what they're doing across points, and you know that they can't change this information, and it works perfectly with DNV's goal, which is, hey, we need to make sure that these companies are doing what they do, and we get money from making sure. And VeChain would just make that so much easier for them. So I think what this partnership really means is that DNVGL is trying to utilize the VeChain blockchain just to make their own work so much more efficient, that if all of the partners or their clients that they have can implement this blockchain solution, this supply chain solution, then suddenly they don't have to go and check everything individually. They can trust in these RFID chips because they trust in the technology. So again, I think this is a huge partnership. I think this is a partnership that if VeChain loses, like, a lot of things will be crumbling down. But I really think they're working hand in hand with each other, and both VeChain and DNVGL, they have nothing but to gain, with this partnership. So I wanted to walk through the partnerships that they have, VeChain, that is. And so they have national level support, the Guiyang new area in China. So this is like a new smart city that China is trying to make, and VeChain is the official blockchain partner. As you know, Walton Chain also had something similar, and I don't think that turned out to be like false, but I think this piece of news actually isn't as big as most people make it out to be. It's not, official approval from the Chinese government. I think it's just whoever's running, the smart city project saying, hey, VeChain, can you help us come up with some blockchain solution? I don't think it's anything super big. But what I think is big is something like PricewaterhouseCoopers China, which is, again, one of the big four auditing firms. Again, just all these high-level companies working with VeChain just show that VeChain is something to be looking at in the future. They have Global Transport and Logistics, 20 billion revenue, conglomerate cold chain logistics. Basically, all the things you saw in the use cases, they came because of all the company partnerships. So this is pretty huge. They have so many partnerships, and again, you can really see, like, if you look at it from a top-down perspective, if you see VeChain at the center and all these companies, VeChain and DNVGL at the center, and all these companies around working with them, you can see how this ecosystem will work, and you can see why these partnerships make sense. They're not just hype partnerships. They're partnerships that are meant to do something. They all work with the same goal, which is, making blockchain supply chain logistics a thing, make them easier, make them viable. And it just benefits everybody here. And so that's VeChain and their partnerships. I didn't really want to get into any specific partnership besides DNVGL because, again, they're just companies that when you go back to that VeChain.org page with the use cases, you can just see why that company would partner with them. So I want to talk about the VeChain Price for a second just because, this is something I found out a lot of you guys care about. I do too, don't get me wrong. It's just not as important to me as just looking towards the future because I think price is a very arbitrary metric for the short term. And I really see a lot of these projects being just way higher than they are right now. So it doesn't really matter to me because, I invested, what I could, and I don't have to sell anytime soon. So VeChain, it followed kind of the same pattern as a lot of other coins, which is just huge spikes in December and January, and then, just a gradual decline, or, pretty steep decline, goes up, goes all the way down. And right now it's at around $2.40. Supply is, where is it? 524 million right now. Total supply is 873 million. I'm actually not totally familiar with why the supply is locked up or how long it'll be locked up for. So that's something to look out for in terms of, if you're looking to buy, you should definitely check exactly what that's at, what's up with that. But like I said, guys, I don't really pay too much attention to the price or what's going on in recent times, because I think blockchain is, or the crypto world in general, is just really decided on hype or general market sentiment and not on fundamentals, which is what I'm hoping to look for. So I think VeChain is a good buy. This is not financial advice, by the way, but I think VeChain is a good buy in terms of the quality of the blockchain project in comparison to a lot of other blockchain products. I just wanted to show you guys the graph in case you hadn't seen it. Now this was when I was doing a little bit of my research. And so, yeah, in conclusion, guys, I really like VeChain. Again, like I mentioned in the beginning, I see what they're trying to do. I see the partnerships that they have, and I just love it. I think they're going about it in a really smart way. At the same time, though, the proof of authority, one of the cons, in my opinion, I think it detracts what VeChain is trying to do. I don't know if they're going for a truly decentralized solution yet, and they may have just not announced it, but I think that's really something they should be looking forward to doing in the future, because it really, that would be kind of the final step of showing that you don't need to trust anyone, that VeChain, you don't even need to trust VeChain anymore, that just the system will run on its own, and the consumer and the business can both, trust each other without trusting each other, basically. And the other thing I want to mention about VeChain is that, it's still an ERC20 token. There hasn't been that much, real tech work done yet. They don't even have a white paper, which isn't a bad thing. I think they came out and said that they don't want to put out a white paper just because, they have the concept and they just want to write it once they have all the solutions, and they're working on that right now. At the same time, because they don't have those solutions, that's one of those things to work out for. Kind of like the proof of authority thing. There's nothing to say that they won't come out and deliver. At the same time, maybe they won't. Who knows? This is something to be wary of, just because they have all these huge partnerships, and really the only thing left to do for VeChain to succeed is to deliver on their promises, on their product. And if you believe that they can do that, I don't think there's any reason you should be scared about VeChain's price anytime. Because I think if VeChain can succeed in what they're doing with the partnerships that they have, especially in DMVGL, they'll be incredibly successful in this crypto world, and possibly might be one of the biggest blockchain companies in the near future. And when I say near future, I mean like 3, 4, 5 years. So again, I think this is really cool. I think there are strength. I haven't looked too much into the economic nodes, but so far as I know, there are like 3 classifications of nodes based. There's the lowest economic node, which is 10,000 VET. So if you have 10,000, then you have increased Thor production. Oh, actually, I didn't talk about Thor production. Okay, so just real quick at the end of this video, I just want to talk about the economic model. So basically, there's VeChain, or VET, VeChain Thor, which is kind of the stock. Think of Neo in terms of like shares within the VeChain blockchain platform. So you have VET, and if you stake that, then you will gain Thor. Again, think Neo and gas. Then you will get Thor, and what they're doing with Thor is they're just trying to stabilize the price of Thor, because Thor will be used for transactions and transaction costs and all these different securing the VeChain network. So you'll get this Thor if you hold VeChain, and they have different economic node setups. So if you have 10,000 VET, then you get I think 25% increased Thor production. If you have 25,000 staking, then it's more than that. They're just different statuses. Again, you should look that up. This is just pretty bare bones of that system. I just understand how it works as a total. And what they're doing for Thor, the the gas-like currency that Thor for Neo, that's what Thor is for VET. What they're doing is they're trying to stabilize that price, because while Neo gas is pretty volatile, what VeChain is hoping to do is they're hoping to input some kind of system or algorithm that will be able to stabilize the price along the way. And maybe I think what might have to do is maybe the supply will be malleable so that they can increase supply to suppress the price. Again, there's not a huge amount of information on it. I've looked into it, didn't find too much, but again, I think that's a pretty smart idea, separating it into two. Especially for these huge companies that you don't want to buy Thor only for it to drop 50% in a month. That it's too variable for these companies when they're calculating their costs. So I think it's a really good idea, and it's a really good opportunity for people who want to secure Thor nodes in terms of having more than 10,000 or 25,000. If you can do that, and you should definitely look into it. I don't want to say if it's a good idea, but it's definitely something you should look into. So yeah, that's about all I have to say about VeChain. I like the project. I'm really looking to see what they're going to come up with in the next year, to see if they're how fast they're delivering on their products and how quickly they can implement all these solutions that they've been that they have these ideas for. But overall, I think they're on the right track and doing a really great job. So thank you guys for watching, and if you like this review, or if you want to say something, please leave me a comment. Likes and subscribes are always appreciated, but no pressure. I just love making these videos for you guys. So yeah, I'll be back with either a weekly crypto recap or some tutorial for exchanges tomorrow or a couple days from now. So thank you guys for watching.